Hey, it's Katie, and welcome back to my booktube channel. For today's video, I will be talking about my favorite side characters from all the books I've read this year. And I've read about 45 books, so that's where I'll be pulling these characters from. And I will also be popping up some fan art that I found from mostly fandom.com, but also a couple other places, and I'll make sure to give credit to the artists in the description box. And also, these characters are in no particular order, it's just the order that I thought of them in, so let's get started. So the first character I thought of is Jax from the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber, and I'm just obsessed with him as a character. I honestly would love for Stephanie Garber to do like a spin-off book or series just focusing on him, because I feel like it's such a cool concept for a character. He's one of the fates, and he's like the Prince of Hearts, and if he kisses somebody, like they could die unless they're his one true love, and I just feel like that's such a cool concept for a character. And I also love him because he's like super cunning, and he doesn't really seem to care what people think about him. And at first he just seems like super cold, and he kind of feels like a villain for a good part of the series. But he also has a soft spot for Tella, and his more warm, I don't think loving's the right word, but like his nice side kind of comes out whenever he's around Tella, and I just think that's really cool to see him grow as a character and see all his dynamics, and I just really love him. That's all I can say. The next character we have is Julius from Even If the Sky Falls by Mia Garcia, and I'm honestly not sure if this book is very well known, but I just really loved this book because it takes place in New Orleans during Mardi Gras. And Julius might not stick out to a lot of people reading this book because he only shows up once at the beginning and once toward the end, so he's not really there throughout the whole book. But I just love him, especially because when we first meet him at the beginning, he's dressed as like this sparkly fish, and I just feel like that's just a super cool like grand entrance to the story. And he's just super eccentric. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. But super fun, and he's also really kind and helpful, and he helped out the main character at the beginning and at the end of the book, and he kind of feels like her guardian angel at times. So I don't know, he was just a super fun character to kind of see throughout the book. The next few characters I have are from the Infernal Devices series by Cassandra Clare, and the first one I want to talk about is Sophie. She's kind of, I don't know if she's the maid, but she's kind of there to just help the other people at the Institute. But she's just super kind-hearted and a little shy and self-conscious at times, but throughout the series you kind of get to see her be more outspoken and confident and honestly kind of badass because she starts to like train with them and everything. So I really loved seeing her grow throughout the series, and she's also just a really loyal person no matter like what happens, and I just think that's really admirable, and I don't know, she's just really sweet, and I found myself rooting for her throughout the books. So next we have Charlotte, who is honestly kind of the motherly figure of the Institute because she's super sweet, she gains people's trust pretty quickly, and she just cares about everybody and takes care of them. And because she's kind of like a smaller girl, I think people like underestimate her a lot, and she's actually like the authority figure of the Institute, kind of like the leader. I forget what it's called, but it's kind of cool to see people like underestimate her, but she ends up being like really powerful and like a great leader, and I don't know, I just love seeing her throughout the book. And when you talk about Charlotte, I feel like you also have to talk about Henry, who is her husband, and he is, honestly, he seems very like quirky and absent-minded throughout most of the books, but he's super kind and optimistic and cheerful, and he's just very sweet to Charlotte and honestly to everybody, but I feel like he's kind of underrated because even though he's her husband, he doesn't really help her lead the Institute as much. He kind of leaves that to her, but he's very supportive of her and has a lot of faith in her as a leader, and I don't know, I just always loved his scenes because he just seemed really quirky and funny and awkward, which I can relate to, so I kind of loved seeing him throughout the books. My next two characters are from the same series, which is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And the first one I want to talk about is Roen, because he is genuinely my favorite character from this series. Like, I can't even put into words really how much I love him as a character, because he's like super badass and dangerous, and he's like this mercenary, but he's also really sarcastic and funny and quick-witted. And when it comes to his relationship with Zaylee, he ends up being very kind and gentle, and he genuinely cares for her. So again, I love a character who's super dynamic. He kind of seems not like a villain, but kind of like a darker character at times, but then that kind side comes out around certain characters, which I guess is something I'm a sucker for, apparently. But yeah, I just love his connection with Zaylee. I feel like it's very passionate and raw, and she seems to kind of make him a better person, and I just love seeing him throughout the books. And my other favorite character from this series is Mazaylee. Not sure if I'm saying that right, but I feel like he's honestly a really underrated character in these books, especially because I couldn't find any fan art for him, but he's one of the younger Reapers, and I think Zaylee's second in command. I don't remember if that's the term, but you kind of see him through that role. But I don't know, he feels a lot younger to me than I think he really is in the book, but I just loved seeing him because he was super charming and kind of like entertaining to see, but at the end of the day, he's a super courageous and selfless person, because he would always like run head on into battle to protect the people that he cares about without a second thought. So even though he was younger than some of the other people around him, he was very quick to jump in and do his job and protect his people. And I just thought that was very admirable, and I just ended up really caring for him as a character. So my last two characters I want to talk about are from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, and if you haven't seen my last video, I just read this for the first time, so I'm really late to the party, but my two favorite characters were Hagrid and Dumbledore. So we'll start with Hagrid. I don't know, I just felt like he was really funny and kind of oaf-like. That's how I kind of took it. And I loved that he didn't really care what people thought about him, like walking through like the subway station, I think, or walking through town, like people would just stare at him and he would be oblivious. He just didn't care, and I think that's just a good quality to have. But at the end of the day, he also has such a kind heart and was super loyal to all of his friends and all the people he cared about. And he also kind of felt like an uncle to Harry for me. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, but just because he kind of had like the mentoring factor for Harry, but he also still showed that he like genuinely cared on kind of a deeper level, and he would make sure to get Harry gifts and spend time with him and do all these things that Harry didn't really get to experience growing up. So I thought that was really nice to see too. And then with Dumbledore, I just love it because I feel like he's what I used to think of when I would think of like a wizard or whatever, because he just has that amazing beard. And he's like super wise and intelligent, and he feels very like all-knowing, and he's also very kind and calm. So even though he has a lot of authority, he does it in a way that's like very respectable, which I appreciate. And this might be a spoiler for some people that haven't read it, but I feel like everybody else in the world has read it before me. But I also loved that Dumbledore had so much faith in Harry, and like throughout the book, he kind of subtly helped equip him with like the tools he needed and the knowledge he needed to face Voldemort with the whole like mirror thing. I forget what that's called, but I think you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I don't know. He was just this really cool, like, he's like the epitome of like a wizard I would think of before reading this series, and that made me happy. Alright, so those are all of my favorite side characters from the books I've read this year. And if you guys enjoy this video, I'd love to do a part 2 next year after I read some more books. And I'd also love to know which side characters are your favorite, so please leave me a comment below. Next week, I will be doing the Find the Words challenge, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and also click the notification bell so you know when I upload next. And thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait to see you in my next video.